to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.com. I'm your host, Connie Whitman, and I am thrilled that you're joining us this week. So here's the deal, right? As soon as you hear the title of the show, Enlightenment of Change, that word change, did you get a knot in your stomach? Most do. So here's the deal. To help you navigate change, I have found in my 62 years on this earth that change happens through good communication. Whether you're creating the change, accepting the change, or it's thrust upon you, the more effective you could communicate and approach or address the change that's in your orbit right now, it will help you navigate just a smidge more easily. So in the show notes is my communication style assessment I gift to you. You'll get 2 reports. One, the first report really spotlights your just natural communication superpowers, how your message naturally lands. Kind of important to know. For me, I think the flip side, where you're speaking with people who are 180 degrees differently than you, that to me is a blind spot, and that report is even more impactful for you. So make sure you read both. I hope it helps you navigate whatever change you're dealing with in your life. And again, that link is in the show notes, my gift to you. Now, my quote today I picked to set the stage for my guests and I, who we've become very, very good buddies because he's from Jersey also. Although now he's in California, he went to the wrong side of the country. Anyway, my quote today is by Chuck Price. And Chuck says, SEO doesn't happen in a vacuum. Every situation offers a unique set of variables. So in this episode, my guests and I, we're going to dive into, obviously the key topic is going to be SEO, including what to look for when hiring an SEO agency, because I know a lot of corporations follow me, weighing the risks and benefits of SEO, and when to hire an in-house resource versus maybe an outside agency. We're also going to explore effective local SEO strategies and break down. My guest uses EEAT. Well, I'm going to let him explain it. I'm not going to share what that is, and what it is and how it will impact your business. So who is this amazing guest I speak of? His name is Nick Musica, an SEO professional since 2003. He's launched his SEO and content creation consultancy called Optics in September of 2019. He focuses on supporting small and medium-sized businesses as well as startups with their SEO needs. So Nick, thanks for being on and sharing your zone of genius with my peeps.
Thank you so much, Connie. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we were chatting away, and then finally we're like, we got to hit record. We have work to do after this, right? So I love when I find a kindred spirit, and it just makes it a little more fun to record the show. So thanks for showing up and being just super cool. All right. First question, dude. When businesses are looking to hire an SEO agency or whatever, what key factors should they really consider so that we make the right choice? Because money's money, right? Money and time are both resources that we shouldn't just kind of throw away haphazardly.
Yeah. So let's start with a couple don'ts. And I get these emails and reach outs too, on LinkedIn, through my contact form on my website, right? Your website needs optimizing, go buy a billion links for $100, something like that. I mean, or so-and-so from wherever they may be. I'm an SEO strategist. Your site stinks. I want to make it better for you. I delete them all. Typically, and I don't know how everyone does their business, but I'm going to go with typically, if someone's reaching out for a service that you didn't solicit for, consider throwing that solicitation out. It's just probably something you don't want. They're giving you a very myopic view into what they're doing to try to sell you a service that you may not need and a quality of service that you don't want. And instead, look for someone who has qualifications. So here's the problem with SEO. And SEO has a checkered reputation for very good reasons. So anyone can wake up tomorrow and say, you know what I'm going to be today? I'm going to be an SEO. It is not like accounting. It's not like being a lawyer. It's not like being a doctor. There's no credentials associated with it. You can just literally wake up tomorrow and say, this is what I do for a living. I read a blog article and sounds good to me. Sounds like the market's going in that direction. I'm an SEO now, right? It happens. So don't buy from those people. Look for someone with a history of work, with a history of results. And no one's going to have 100% up into the right results. It just doesn't work that way. Because it's you doing the work on a website and And the final judgment of that work is Google. So we do the best work we can based on what we know that has worked historically and best practices. But sometimes when we could talk about it, like Google makes algorithm changes for one reason or another. And sometimes good sites can get hung up in those bad algorithms. So you want someone who can help you navigate you in your business and your website for the goals you're going for in the current environment with an eye on future-proofing your website in the future. That's what you're looking for. So look for someone who has a history of doing this work for at least 5 years is what I caution folks to do, right? So why 5 years? It's arbitrary. It is a little arbitrary, but in 5 years, they're learning on someone else's dime. Right. And if you hire them after a year or two as they're doing their work, they're still going to be learning on your dime, which is fine if that's what you know you're getting into. But if you want results, like small businesses, big businesses, and I'm working with both right now, they want results.
Yeah.
They're not looking to have me learn on their dime, and I'm not. I'm looking at they're learning on my dime, right? Like I'm teaching them SEO and I'm looking to get them results all at the same time.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, sales is my jam and that's what I teach. And everybody goes, oh, I made 10 calls. Okay, what were the results? Because here's the thing, great, you did the activity. I'm really proud of you, but the results measure, were they the right people? How was your skill on that telephone call or that email or what had that outreach, right? So there's a lot of pieces that go into that. But if you have garbage in those 10 calls, you've just wasted time because you've gotten no results.
That's right.
Or those 10 calls, you've gotten 5 results. How do we double down? Let's create that as a process because we know that the results are there. It becomes very tangible. Now we could double down on that effort, teach other people to do the same thing, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So activity, so it's the same concept though, right? Just because I know what to do in the SEO, okay, what are the results? It's got to be about the results, not about this is what I could do for you. And I just want to share, Nick, it's so frustrating as a small business owner. Through the years, my husband and I laugh because I go, remember when I hired them? And then at the end they go, okay, we're done. And I'm like, that's it? Like I could have done that. And I spent how many thousands of dollars? You didn't deliver what you said. You went through the motions. You did whatever. There were 0 results at the end. So it happens to the best of us. So that's why I like that first question of, be careful, like buyer beware. But what does that even mean, Nick? Because if I don't know anything about SEO, how do I know who to vet out to know if they know what the heck they're doing?
So let's add a little story into this. So I was talking to a gentleman, a lawyer, just a few months ago, and he was looking to exit from a current contract with a large agency. And he's asking me, well, what do you offer? And I'm telling him what we do. And I said, so what would be really helpful is to understand what you're currently getting. If you're comfortable with it, and I'm not trying to price it based on the dollar you're paying today, but I'm trying to understand the scope of work that you signed up for. So if you're comfortable sharing the contract, I'd love to see the contract. Take the numbers out. I don't care. He said, well, I would, except it's completely vague. What do you mean it's completely vague? They didn't tell you what they were doing? No. Are you sure you don't want to send that to me? I mean, maybe it's in language that is very SEO. It reads like Greek if you don't speak SEO. No, there's nothing in there. Okay. Well, then let's have the conversation we should have because we can't base it on what you're currently getting. And is that good? And you want to continue with that type of effort, or should we change it? Or if you don't know what you don't know,
Start from 0.
Start from 0, right? But typically when you go into the car dealership, you're looking at a specific car. You know the make and model of that car. You know how it runs to some degree. You know how to compare it to the sedan or the SUV or the flatbed. You know what you're walking out with. So you should have, even if you don't understand it, and you won't. Like people who don't do SEO are not going to understand my SOWs. You mentioned an acronym in the beginning at the top of our time, EAT. Well, what does that even mean? You're not going to know what that means. You won't. But I should have a good answer for you, even if you don't understand all the details. I need to show up and show you that I understand it. So if I can't piece apart my own SOW, you shouldn't hire me. And if I don't have details in there to piece apart, you shouldn't hire me.
Isn't that interesting? Because here's the thing too, like I'm going to tell you, and I'm not stupid. All right. I'm a pretty intelligent person. Sometimes, right. I'll put that caveat in there, but I have hired people and the contracts were vague because our conversation, they understand, right? It's vague in there, but it's in there, right? So, and he was a lawyer and he fell into the same trap I did because I think, but I don't understand SEO or I don't understand whatever branding website, whatever it might be. So they're going to handle the website. Okay, handle the website. Well, what does that mean? I don't know what to ask them what that means.
That's right.
That's what happened with the attorney. So it's not that we're not smart. It's just we don't know what should be in there.
Yeah. So I would say all of our SOWs are pretty clear within the scope of SEO, where there's acronyms, and we should talk about what those means
Yes,
when we're having those discussions, right?
Mm.
The only time it's unclear is when we don't know the result we're going for, when we don't know the support we need, but we do know that we need some support because we're going for a result and we know we don't have the right people to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go, great, we don't know what we're doing. Let's put a toe in the water. Let's get 10 hours on the books, where 10 hours equals these types of things, right? Big bucket, you choose. And when we run out of 10 hours, we can make decisions. And ideally between here and there, we start to understand what the world looks like, because no matter what the discussions you have going into an agreement with someone, being a client or vendor, you never have the full story. You never do. And so you're always learning along the way as to, oh, this is the shape of the thing that I'm working with. Oh, yeah. Now I get it, right? So for example, I'm working with a company now who has quote unquote SEO issues. Great. Well, we started with a block of hours. And the more we move through it and the more questions I'm asking, I'm going, you don't have it. This is a big company. You don't have an SEO problem. Well, what do you mean? Our traffic's been going down to the right for years. It's true. It has been. That's a symptom of the problem. What are you talking about? The symptom. So that's the result. The cause is no one knows the roles and responsibilities. There's no process in place. We say SEO is important, but we don't fund it, right? We don't have the education in-house. So you're not organized. You're just simply not set up. The organization's not set up for success. It is a startup that has grown and is a proper company now, still operating like a startup. Right. So we're slinging code. We're saying it's important, and then Friday comes around and we go, here's what we're working on next week. Right. Like you got to pick your North Star. You got to work towards it. Right. Choose your tactic. Choose your marketing tactic. You can't just put a toe in, walk away, and go, the water's cold. It's going to be cold for each and every tactic. You need to know who's doing what, why you're doing it, and have a plan and execute, and also pivot along the way, because things will show up. But if you don't have the right people in place, they don't have expectations, you're going to call someone else in 6 months because this guy didn't work out for you, and I didn't. But it wasn't necessarily my fault. It was because we didn't have the right conversations, and the problem that we're solving it's not SEO. It's just not, right? It's an organizational problem that shows as an SEO problem.
And that's scary because they don't want to admit that it's an organization problem, right? It's better to deflect and say you didn't do your job, even though you did, because you're the project manager. You know what has to, all the pieces of the puzzle to have the results and the success. But if they're not willing to jump in the deep end with you put all of those pieces in place, you're not going to get the result. And then they're blaming you because they don't want to look internally. I see this all the time with oh, that's not us. Really? Really? It's not you? Okay. Right. See it all the time. What are some of the most significant risks and maybe even rewards associated with investing, where what you just said, where companies think, all right, if it's not an SEO problem, it's an internal problem, right? That could be the risk, and we're losing reward because we're losing results. But what are some of the other risks and rewards when investing with an SEO?
With an SEO individual or in SEO as the topic? Which one, Connie? Because there's two questions in there.
And I don't know enough about SEO to answer that. So why don't you tell me?
Okay, let's go with you hire the wrong resource. What's the worst that could happen?
Yes, well, that's a risk.
So here's the worst that could happen is I could tell you to do things that just don't move the needle. And I can keep you chasing your tail on things that are just small items. That's not going to move the needle. So when we do audits for folks, we have the findings. Ideally, they are plug and play. All the information is in there. They're supportive files, right? And we have, here are the severe issues, here's the medium severity, here's the low. And so sometimes it sounds like this. Oh man, that's a big severity issue. We don't have the resources for it right now. Okay, well okay, so now we're in momentum mode, right? Let's start in the low. So let's start in the medium, but let's not pretend that the severe are not severe, right? So we're building momentum to get to the severe. We're not calling it a day, right? Ideally, we do start at the severe because those are going to be the biggest bang for the buck.
Yeah.
But it depends on the organization. We need to get moving. But I'm not going to tell you, man, like hitting those smaller items, it's really going to change things. No, it's going to get you momentum internally. It's not going to get you results faster. Then why are we doing it, Nick? Because you're not positioned to do these.
That's right.
Right.
But you still have to have a strong foundation, I would think, right, Nick?
And you still need to get to these, but sometimes these are a little more technical, the higher severity. And there's sort of, there could be dependencies, there could be some educational issues going on internally. There could be some buy-in from management, leadership, who knows, right? So we want to gain momentum, and we want to go in the right direction. So hire the right person so they can properly frame out the work for you. So you get a result, right? And any marketing tactic is hard. Any marketing tactic can be hard. Paid search is a lot of money. You need to optimize over there. Facebook used to be cheap. Now it's a lot of money. TikTok, maybe your people on it, maybe they're not on it. Maybe it converts, maybe it doesn't convert. Email, you can burn your lists out. You can get on a blacklist. SEO takes time. And so that's the biggest thing with SEO is it takes time, right? You're planting seeds. And so when are the seeds going to grow and fruit? Well, that's the conversation. Well, you need the right soil, you need the right seeds, you need the right expectations. You may have to wait until next year. It depends on the issues of the website. If you have a formal block and Google can't get to your site and you remove those blocks, you could have a flood of results coming in quickly. If you have quality issues, that may be more difficult. So to say, here's the problem, here's the solution, here's the expectations, is very helpful. And so folks who, again, I'm going to use 5 years as the arbitrary number. Folks who haven't worked on enough sites to see enough of these problems sort of go, on page 99, it says do the thing, right? There's a big difference between reading the book and having the experience. And one sort of leads to the other. But you need to talk to someone who can do the work. It's a little bit, I mean, we mentioned lawyers a couple times, right? So you're never hiring the law firm. You're never hiring the law firm. You're hiring the lawyer that works for the law firm. Tell me about the person who's going to be on my case. We are the biggest legal firm in the state. I don't care. Tell me about the person who's working on my case. Yeah. Because that's the one who's showing up.
Well, it's like the surgeon. Is it the resident that's going to be operating on me when I get in there? No, I want the doctor who's been doing it for 20 years and created the procedure. Thank you very much. Right? It's the same concept.
That's right.
It's funny. I mentioned this when we were chatting, and I work with bankers, and I giggle because the younger people, right, starting their career, and they'll ask me a very good question. I had a client, this is how it went. It was an epic fail. What could I have said differently? And it happened yesterday. I had a young man who stayed on a call and said, "Can you help me with this?" Sure. And I sat there, think for a second, and I said, "Well, I think this is the approach that you're looking for that suits your personality," right? And we went through, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I could do that. That's good. Oh, how did you do that?" 42 years in sales. Don't please, and I say this all the time, don't compare, because I was able to answer that you should have known that. You've been in banking 2 years, 5 years, 8 years. You don't have 40 years of experience. You haven't seen what I've seen. It's in my bones. It's not just, oh, I know what works because I've done it. I've seen it. I've had epic fails, for the first 10 years of my career. So what you're saying, I think, is real. And I want everybody to hear this. You have to hire the right person, and you have to dial into who is the person I'm hiring, not just the organization, because you're hiring their credentials. You're hiring, in this case, Nick's credentials, that this isn't his first rodeo. He's been doing it for a couple of decades. This is his jam, right? He understands it. The other thing I think it's important too, Nick, that you've been doing this for 2 decades. You've seen how the technology has evolved, and now you have a perfect positioning because you understand all of it. You've lived through it. You've seen it change, right? You've lived the history. Now with the AI coming on, you're very well positioned to pivot and shift because you have a little bit of a history. You're ahead of this. You're the head of the learning curve because you have all the SEO, and you could potentially see the ramifications with the
That's right.
AI that others can't. That's the expertise you bring to the table.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. And thank you for bringing up AI. So, I mean, as soon as people started talking about it, I had a loosely held perspective. Right. And there's been so much hype about it, and then it's going to solve all the problems and do all the things for us, and the world's going to be better, and people are going to lose their jobs, but then they'll be able to do other things. I'm looking at it from the lens of SEO. I don't care about anything else, right? This is what I do. This is where I am. This is my lane. I'm pretty good in my lane. I'm staying in my lane, right? So when they came out and said AI content, I'm like, oh man, let's take a look at this. And so I have my own experiments, right? I have client work. And before I bring anyone in to expose them to client work, they're working on my experiments, right? Because I want to see how they show up for 5 hours. I want to see the quality of the work. I want to see how they show up for 10 hours. And then I'm going to see how they, now once you prove yourself, now I'm comfortable giving you some tasks, right? So it's a slow roll when I get people into my system. And so AI comes through, and everyone's saying it's going to be the bee's knees. And I'm thinking, how is this any better than the spun content? And so an SEO perspective, back in the day, it was very computer science centric perspective around go out to the internet, grab 10 pages, grab the copy, spin it up so it reads differently, dump it on my website. Do that 100 times, you have 100 pages, right? Sometimes it read better, sometimes it read worse, sometimes it was awful. AI is the same concept, right? So now the question is, how well is it doing that? I don't know. And so there was a couple of things that showed up, but this was the kicker for me. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. There was a company who sold AI generated content, and sort of if you read it fast, you're like, not so bad. When you read it slowly with like, when you really want to understand it, you go, what an effing disaster this is, right? Jeez. Like, give me something well thought out with details, and then take those things out, and now you're left with what you got.
Yeah.
Right? Awful. Yeah. But here was the kicker. Run this through, run the content you just paid us for through our AI detection tool, so we can score the content we generated for you so that Google doesn't identify it as AI content. What nonsense is that? Really? Hey, Connie, I'm going to go guard the chickens. Right? Are you sure they're going to be okay? Trust me. What's your first name? Nick. What's your last name? Fox. Oh, okay. Right? Like it's so silly. It is so silly. Right? So spirit wise, we're still spinning content. Will it ever get to a place where it performs just as well? Or I don't know, but we're certainly not there today. We're certainly not there today. Can it be used as a productivity tool? 100%. Absolutely 100%. Right? So I use ChatGPT to like, give me some outlines. Give me some outlines. So I've worked in car insurance for longer than I would like to admit, before I started my full-time gig, my own agency. And so sort of my litmus test for anything is car insurance. So I go to ChatGPT and I say, give me a page, or an outline for a new driver looking for their new policy for their new car. And it exports it. Oh, but at first I'm going, not so bad, because it's fast, right? Everyone gets the reaction. It's fast. It's so good. And then I start reading and I'm like, well, that's wrong. Well, that's wrong. Oh, they didn't even mention in the how to finance section. Where do most kids, their first car, how do they finance the car? Is it from the bank? Is it from all their savings? It's from mom and dad. Is mom and dad in there?
Are co-signing.
Yeah, right. The bank of mom and dad.
Yes.
Mom and dad is not in there, right? So this is incomplete. But what it does, if you know the topic, and that's the big if because if you don't know the topic, you go, this is amazing. This is fantastic. I could, if the outline is this good, just write the copy for me, right? So if you know the topic, you can look at it and go, I have something I can react to. Let me grab this thing that is at best 60% correct, and let me shine it up so that I can actually use it, right? It's sort of like getting an intern in, and you have a complex business. And you're like, can you go please do this thing that requires a lot of process, domain expertise, right? You had to have at least 10 conversations with 5 different people from different departments. And can you go do this thing? It's not going to come back well. You're setting that person up for failure. You know you are. Same thing is happening when we work with AI. Use it as a productivity tool to help with the productivity. And if it helps, great. Use it all day long to help with the productivity.
But don't make that the product or the output, right?
It's not the output.
Yeah, it gets things lubed up, so to speak, or
That's right.
Gets the wheels in motion. I want to ask another question. You mentioned the EEAT, the EAT, right?
Yeah.
What is that? Because is that acronym specific to SEO? And then what does it actually mean?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about 2 acronyms because your folks are bankers, right? So finance. Yeah. So EAT stands for, it used to be EAT, and now it's EEAT. So expertise, authority, and trust, and then experience was tagged onto it. So we're talking about values on a website. So is there experience being expressed? Is there expertise being expressed? Is there authority being expressed? Is there trust being expressed? Right. So let's use car insurance again as the example, or even financial planners. How long you've been in business? What are your certifications? Do you have an office? How do I contact you? Like, these are all EAT factors, right? They're all things that are going to make a user comfortable with going to your website. So it sort of makes sense, right? Who wrote the article? Can I reach out to you? Like, really basic things in many cases, right? But it's trying to separate the guy who can talk about AI, the guy who can, in his basement, spin up 10 different websites on 10 different topics and just flood the search engines, and bully them, compared to the real brands who actually have real people, real products, and real services, right? One's going to execute on EAT differently than the other. So you want to put real faces behind the pictures. You can put fake faces these days. It's not that hard. It's not that hard at all, right? But you want to leverage the realness of your company to express that to your users. And so here's the other thing that's going to matter to your folks. It's YMYL. And that stands for your money or your life.
Oh.
So, right. So businesses / websites that fit into the YMYL, Pet Rocks do not, right? Right. Just to draw the big, let's create some contrast here. Pet Rocks, who cares? Doesn't matter. And what's the experience or the EAT around Pet Rocks? Probably not a lot.
Right.
But when we talk about your money or your life in terms of finance, in terms of insurance, in terms of banking, you are smack dab 100% in that YMYL, and EAT is on the heels of it. And so what does that mean? Google is going to look at your website, if it fits in the YMYL categories, with more scrutiny than the Pet Rock website.
Oh.
So you better be tucked and buttoned very well. Your website better be technically sound. You better not be making promises you can't keep. And so regulations and compliance, most people don't, but there's a couple loose cannons out there, right? And so we're not them. We want to make sure our content does what it does. Our website expresses what it does. It could be crawled, it could be indexed, like I said, technically sound. And we present the best product to the users with the end user in mind, servicing them. And that's done through a very specific lens in SEO, called SEO.
So fascinating. Last question, because we're almost out of time, but what practical steps? So as people are listening, whether they're a small business or they're a big organization, what can they take so that they can improve and dial into, let's say, the EEAT, right? The EAT score, so that they build that, I'm assuming, like that trustworthiness, right, with their online presence?
Yeah, so there's a few things. So let's break it down a little bit here. So there's three factors in SEO. There's the technical aspect. Can Google crawl and index your website?
Mm-hmm.
There's the on-page aspect. What are you saying and how are you saying it on your site? What keywords are you using? What media are you using? Right? Then there's the off-page, other websites that talk about you and link over to your website. Those three factors matter a lot. Number one on the list is technical, right? So think about it this way. You have folks coming over for dinner. Your house is a wreck. You clean up your house. You never answer the door, right? You clean up the house, aka your content, right? It's awesome, but you're not answering the door, aka you're technical. Google cannot get to your great content. So we always start at the technical, always, always, always. I don't care if the site is 1 page or a million pages. I want to see how the technical is doing, because if Google can't access it, I'm gonna go, great. Now let's talk about content, and let's spend $1 million on content, which is not an actual. Just stick with me for the example. And for every dollar we spend on content, at best we're going to get 60 cents return. Well, that's really bad math. We want to start going out the door, setting ourselves up with success, right? So we do that by looking at the content, the technical, so that we can see once we can get crawled and indexed, then we have content that can be actually ranked, right? And so here's what we can do free of charge for everyone. Search for Google Search Console, and you can set up your own account. You can grab a little tag, put it on your pages, and this is sort of like a bat phone between you and Google. It's a direct line of communication. There's no one you can actually call, but you will get a bunch of reports. You will get perspective from Google about your website. Sometimes there's a lot of noise. Sometimes it's very helpful. It sort of depends. But this is your first step into understanding, well, what's the health of my website looking like? I don't know. So that's super duper helpful. So even before we get to eat, let's understand the technical health of our website.
Yeah. It's crazy because, and this is why, and I think I shared this, I don't know if it was before we started or during the show, but, when I started my business, I didn't have a website because I didn't really need it, 25 years ago. Well, the world has changed. And I kept thinking I could figure it out. I could figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. I understood the concept. There was no way I could have created a website. I would still be waiting if I was the one who had to do it. So, business owners, executives, we want to save the budget. But what are we hurting in the process of say penny wise, dollar foolish? That's where I'm going with that, Nick. So we're out of time, but this whole SEO is so out of my zone of genius. It's like, wow, right? So as you're talking, thank you for dumbing it down for me. I appreciate that. Because I think everybody makes it more complicated than it needs to be with the people reaching out, because you don't know what you're doing, but I do. That's why you need to hire me. That's the people I definitely won't hire, because I know that they're full of it, because they think they're going to pull the wool over my eyes because I don't understand. Where I really feel like you say, all right, yeah, I'm an SEO expert, but let's figure you out before I even tell you how I could potentially help you. And you get into the weeds quickly to be able to build what's the first brick we even need to put down, right? As we build what we're building. So I really like your approach. And I like how you use those examples, like with the attorney and the car and the AI. You make it real and understandable, which I think is important for these complicated topics, like the SEO, like the EAT, like what was the other one? My money or my life?
Yep. Yeah. Your money or your life.
It's like, I feel like I was being held hostage, right? Your money or your life. So yeah. So what? I've never heard of this stuff. That made so much sense to me. So here's the deal, guys. I think we all need a little more Nick in our life. Email him. Well, a couple of things. For website is opticsin.com. Email Nick directly if you have a specific question, or like the attorney, you have a contract and you're like, yeah, it ain't doing much over here. Have the conversation with Nick, because it really could be, let's not do that. You're throwing a ton of money away. We could do it more ease, whatever it might be. So email Nick at opticsin.com. Additionally, if they reach out to you and they do hire you, you have a gift for my people, right?
I do. Yeah. For folks listening, say, I heard about you. You were talking with Connie, you were talking about SEO, and I would like to talk about that 10% discount that you offered. So
Beautiful.
let's talk about that. And we'll have it. So the step is get you on the line. We have a discovery phone call. You ask me questions. I want you to feel comfortable. I ask you questions. I want to make sure there's a good fit there.
Yeah.
And then we can say, here's what makes sense. I send you a soft proposal. Here's what I'm thinking about. If this sounds good, I'm going to give you a formal proposal, and then we schedule the work and we start doing it.
I love it. Thank you so much. That's really nice of you to offer the 10%. So listen, if your SEO is on your radar, just have a conversation with Nick. Check out the website for sure, but reach out to him because you could see he's very easy to talk to, and he simplifies these complex things so that you understand what you need to do. I don't mean that we should be doing it, because we should be running our business, by the way, right? Hire the expert. We want people to hire us as the expert for me with sales. We should be hiring these experts like Nick. But here's the thing, at least I can understand what the heck he's talking about. So again, Nick, I'm loving on you, my friend. I think you make so much sense for me. So thanks for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your zone of genius. Thank you for the generous gift. And the world's crazy, man. We need people like you. Thanks for being on, kiddo.
Thanks, Connie.
Yeah, real pleasure. And I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together that no matter where you are on changing your life or whatever change you're going through, my guests and we usually have some pretty good ideas that we share, stories, ideas, topics. And I really hope that you do something with the information. So here's the deal. If you think, oh, this is a cool topic, I have no idea what my website is ranking, maybe go and look at your analytics on Google and see if it's even showing up. That could be even a first step. Information, I say this every show, Nick. Information's a beautiful thing. If we do nothing with it, it's information in your brain, and it's not going to help you, right, with the change that you're dealing with. When you take advice, you use the stories, you use the information, you email my guests, or you go to their website. That's the action. I promise you, magic happens on the back end. So, Nick, thank you again for being on. Thank you all for joining me. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.com. I truly am honored to have you on this journey of change with me. And I really, really love that you tune in every week. I watch my analytics like Google does on the podcast, and I love seeing the numbers go up. It really, really brings me joy that I bring you joy. I love you all. Have a great week filled with good change. And I hope my guests and our conversation has helped you navigate maybe a piece of a puzzle that you were looking to achieve. I love you. Have a great week. Thanks again, Nick. I'll see you next time, everybody.